Hi guys, it's Tara and welcome back to Crafting with Curly Cues. Today is day 7 of the Handmade Holiday series and I am going to be doing this really cute shaker card using some die cuts. So to start, I've got a little scrap of Nina Solar White and this adorable Toboggan Together stamp set from Fawn, and I'm just going to go ahead and stamp out a few of these little images using some Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And I am using the Memento because I will be doing some Copic coloring later, and this ink is fabulous for Copic coloring. It does not bleed when you use the alcohol markers. So I'm using the cute little deer that's sitting down, the little penguin, and then the little stack of presents for my card today. And now I'm going to jump into my Copic coloring, and I have sped this up like super fast because I'm not doing anything overly fancy here. And I wanted to make sure that I could get all the cool shaker parts of the card in the video later and not make it too super long. So I'm just going in on the little deer with a couple different shades of brown, and then I'm going to go ahead and give him some pink little cheeks and then use just some lighter shades of brown to color his face and his belly there. And then for the penguin here, I am going to use my warm grays, and I'm going to start with a lighter color and then come in with the darker warm gray and then just go back in and blend that out so that he has just a little bit of shadow there but still looks like a black penguin. And then I'm just using some lighter warm grays for his belly just to provide a little bit of shadow to that white area so it's not so stark white and he's got some dimension there. I also put some rosy cheeks on him because all the animals are cold and they have cute, adorable little rosy cheeks. So I had to do that, and then of course color his little beak and his feet. For my little present stack here, I'm using a couple of the blue-violet tones, and I'm going with a little bit of a non-traditional color scheme here, and that is because, as you will see later, this is what is going to match the pattern papers that I've selected for the rest of the layout on my card. So I went in with the purples, and then I have some blue-greens, kind of this fun teal color that I'm working with. And then I also brought in some gray tones. So kind of a different palette for Christmas, but I kind of like it. It's like a fancy ice queen kind of palette. I don't know. So then I fussy cut all those images out, and I'm just lining the edges with my black soot distress marker so it looks like they're cut out perfectly. That's something that I always like to do when I fussy cut up to the line. It just really makes it look nice and professional. And then I have that Let It Snow border die from Fawn, and I have actually cut that out of some Nina Solar White cardstock, and I went ahead and cut that out 4 different times. So the main reason I did this is because lately I'm kind of obsessed every time I use a die cut like this with stacking them up and making them dimensional so that it almost looks like a chipboard element on the front of your card. I think it looks really cool. It adds extra dimension. It just makes those die cuts really pop and really sturdy. This die is fabulous. It's super dainty. It's really detailed. And I could see how it could maybe have gotten lost on the design that I used for this card if it was just one, but by popping it up, it really makes it a good focal point on the card. So I'm just using my Zig glue pen to put a nice layer of glue on the top of one of those die cuts, and then I'm just going to line it up on the top. And the liquid glue allows you to kind of wiggle it and get it right in place there. It gives you a little bit of time before that glue dries. And once you start to get the beginning, the rest of it just kind of falls in place because they're exactly the same. So it wants to go and be right on top. So now I've done all 4, so this is the last one, and I'm just getting it on there nice, and you can see how fun and dimensional that has now created that sentiment. I think it looks super cool. So I have got this adorable paper pack from Bow Bunny, and then that stitched film strip die from Pretty Pink Posh. And I did a lot of pre-cutting on this card because I just did a lot of die cuts. I did some stitched rectangles and then did some hillside borders using some of those pattern papers. All those dies are from Fawn. I've listed all the supplies over at my blog, so if you're interested in what I used, go ahead and pop over there and check it out. But I have a bunch of these different little hillsides, and so I'm just kind of figuring out how that's going to go on my card base here. My card base is some Simon Says Stamp Fog cardstock. I thought it looked really pretty with that piece of paper I chose for the snowbanks that's kind of got some fun gray words written on it there. So this card design was originally, when I kind of conceptualized it in my brain, it was just going to be this cute little winter scene, and then I'm like, oh, I'll stick the film strip on there because I haven't used it yet. and I'll just put these little animals in it, and that was pretty much all I was going to do. Well, then I got going here, and I'm like, well, what if I put some fun glitter on the snowbanks? Wouldn't that be fun? And then from there, I was like, well, how about if I made it a shaker card? Because if I'm going to get my glitter out, I might as well make it a shaker. And it just evolved from this nice, simple card into this much more complicated one. But it turned out so pretty, and I'm so glad that I decided to go ahead and take that extra step and make it the shaker card. So I'm using some shaved ice from Stampendous, and this stuff is so pretty. It's like this iridescent plastic flakes. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's super fun. And I am just putting it on the very top of the little snowbanks. So I'll kind of go over a little bit more when I do the next one because you can see a lot more of it. So that back snowbank is going behind my panel. For some reason, this is just kind of how I like to do scenes and leave that little border. So you can see you can only see a little bit from that back one. So I'm going to take my pencil and mark where I want that to sit. The reason that these are kind of wonky on the bottom is because I did one stitched rectangle and then took my stitched hillside borders and used the same stitch rectangle over and over to create these different borders. And that way I have the stitching detail on the sides, but I didn't have to cut a whole bunch of different papers. I was able to use a whole bunch of that same stitched rectangle. So that's why like the bottom is curvy and stuff. So I'm just evening that up. I put it on just a smidge Cricut. And so I have some Ranger multimedia mat squirted on my glass craft mat there, and I'm just using my finger to rub that on the top of this snowy hillside here. And then I'm taking that shaved ice and just dabbing it on and squishing it into that glue. And then I take it over to my garbage can and I kind of tap off all the extra. And then it leaves a really pretty glittery, icy border along the top of my snowbanks. So I thought that looked super fun. I really love this stuff. It's so iridescent and sparkly. And I thought it was cool because that is pattern paper for the snow, that it kind of made it extra snowy just so that you're really sure that it's snow since it had the pattern on it. I don't know. I just thought it was it came together cool. And I like the way that the purple on that pattern paper in the back just barely peeks over that back snowbank. So you do get the purples, but it's not really like obvious. So it ties into the presents. So like I said, this is one of those cards that kind of evolved from super simple into like, wow, this is really fun. So now I'm kind of finishing up the layout and seeing how I want this to go on there. So I'm just going to kind of put my film strip on at an angle, and then I'm going to run that really awesome sentiment border that we've created right next to the film strip there sideways. Now I have some snowflakes. This is from the Lawn Fawn Mini Snowflakes dies, and they're actually left over from day 6 of my Handmade Holiday series. So I didn't actually cut these today, but since I had them sitting in my little teacup of leftovers, I decided to go ahead and bust them out and add some snow to this scene. So I'm just kind of figuring out where I'm going to want those. And because I lost the little dot to my eye for my sentiment there, I'm going to use a snowflake for that. And I thought that worked out pretty cool. So once I figure out where I want them, I'm just going to use the same little smush of the Ranger Multimedia Matte and just go ahead and put some of that on the back of these snowflakes and apply it. This adhesive is really awesome. Not only is it really strong, but it dries completely matte. So if it squishes out from underneath your really delicate die cuts, you will never know because it doesn't dry with a shiny sheen like a glossy accents would. So now that the snowflakes are on there, I'm going to start assembling my shaker portion. So first, I'm going to put down one of these film strips, and honestly, you probably wouldn't have to do this part, but I just thought it was easier to line everything up just doing 2 layers rather than trying to eyeball it. So I went ahead and just put one of the film strips down straight on there. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the centers, and I did cut the centers out of another piece of pattern paper from that same Bow Bunny Altitude 6x6 paper pack. So this has a really cool wood grain pattern, but it still kind of has the purples and the teals to match the background. So I'm going to pop those right in there and kind of do some inlaid die cutting with that. And like I said, that was my original plan, and that was going to be the whole card. So you could totally stop at this point if you didn't want to go crazy like I decided to do today on this project, and just pop your little critters on there, and that would be a super cute card all by itself. But I am, of course, going to just, kick it up a notch because, I don't know, I haven't crafted in like 2 weeks, and I was like, I'm going to do something really complicated. So I'm using my zig glue pen just to go ahead and stick those little animals. They fit perfectly in the little squares. This die is phenomenal. I love Pretty Pink Posh and all her stuff, and of course Paulina never disappoints. So this is the first time I use this die, and I'm loving it. It's definitely going to be a staple. And I love this little deer that is sitting with his little legs all splayed. He's kind of sitting how my pug sits. I don't know. That deer reminds me of my pug. I don't know if that's a weird thing to say, but it's true. So now that those are on there, I'm going to go ahead and put an acrylic block on top of there and just let it squish on so that those are nice and adhered. And then I'm going to start moving on to the next stage. So what I did is I took the same stitched film strip die and I went ahead and ran it through my Big Shot with some 4mm craft foam. So that went ahead and cut out the exact same film strip shape out of the craft foam to help me make my shaker. So before I'm going to assemble the shaker part, I'm adding just a little bit of detail. I put some black Sakura Jelly Roll pen on the eyes and nose of my critters just to make them pop. And then I've got my white Sakura Jelly Roll pen. And I'm just adding a little bit of white dot detail to the cheeks of the critters and then the little head on the deer. And then I put some little detail on the presents. And then of course I have to come in with my Wink of Stella and glitzy things up. So I'm going to go over the presents with my Wink of Stella, and then I'm going to go over the black portion of the penguin and the lighter portions on the little deer. So I can't ever resist Wink of Stella. Wink of Stella and Pretty Pink Posh something is on just about every card that I make. So, you know, you got to stay constant with some things in the crafting world, right? So that is all set, and I'm just kidding. I can't stop with the Wink of Stella. It's like an addiction. I have to Wink of Stella everything. So I decided to put some of that on the snowflakes too, because they needed a little shimmer. All that really pretty shaved ice was stealing the spotlight. So now there's Wink of Stella on my snowflakes. So all is right in the world. So now I am taking that second stitched film strip that I cut out of the Nina Solar White, and I'm putting a little bit of zig glue pen on the back, and I'm going to go ahead and put my acetate strip on the back of that. So I'm creating the front of my shaker panel. So I just cut my acetate down with scissors just to be about the same size. I just kind of held my film strip up there and eyeballed it. And then I'm just trimming off the excess because it was poking out the end a little bit. So now that that piece is all taken care of, I'm going to grab my craft foam piece that I cut, and you can see that it's exactly the same. If you needed to, like if your craft foam poofed out too much or something, you could just trim some of the excess off the sides and make it just slightly smaller. But I didn't have any trouble with this 4mm craft foam. It fit perfectly behind my stitch film strip. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere that directly onto the card, and the reason I did it that way was so that I could put my shaker bits onto the card and then put the front panel on top of that, instead of having to put the shaker bits on the front panel and then put the card on upside down. I'm not very good at that, so I didn't even want to try it. So I'm putting more of that shaved ice in there, and so that's going to give it the illusion of the snow. So I really love the way that this turned out. The craft foam makes it super easy to do shaker cards. You don't have to worry about layering up foam tape or anything. And it divided each little section, so I could have each little section filled with shaker bits, which I think is super awesome. So I used my Tombow Mono Multi Glue to go ahead and put a very thin line of adhesive around the top of the craft foam. And then I'm just putting that top layer right on top. And you can see you can kind of wiggle it for a little bit, so if something was poking out, you could shift it over a little bit. And then I put my acrylic block back on top just to go ahead and let that set. So while that's setting, I'm going to go ahead and glue up my sentiment strip here. And then I'm just going to line that up where I want it and push it down nice and hard. It doesn't want to stick very well to that shaved ice portion, so I'm just holding it with my finger a little bit longer right there just to make sure that it really sticks. And then I'm adding my little snowflake eye dot there that I forgot. Oops. And then I'll just take my scissors and I'll trim off the extra, since that sentiment is sticking off the ends of the card just a little bit, because it's a super long, awesome sentiment that stretches all the way across an A2 card, which is super fabulous. So now that that is all taken care of, I'm just going to beat on this a little bit and get those shaker bits to fall down. So I love the way it looks like it's snowed inside the film strip. I think that is so super cute. And if you shake it around, you get snow all over the little elements in there, but I love that when it's just standing up, you get snow in each separate square of that film strip. and it matches the snowbanks. I think that looks super cute. So there's kind of a close-up for you, and then I'm going to show you the finished card here. I love all the sparkle and shine and the really fun colors on this card. Here is a close-up of that cute little deer sitting in his little film strip snow. I think it's adorable. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit subscribe. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up. I've listed all the supplies over at my blog, and you can join me on Facebook, Pinterest, and Instagram. Bye!